Hello there. Hey, this is part two. The first video ran like an hour, so we decided to break this up into two parts so you guys could sit down and take really good notes. Hopefully, change some of the ways that you're thinking about how your organization is running, and really, maybe even deciding the fact that, hey, listen, this is a company that we need to be partnering with. So, in either case, this is part two. This is the framework. In part one, we talked about, you can go back and watch this, but we talked about kind of the context behind it. And the context is ATG a high-performing organization? Can ATG, Adams Technology Group, call itself a high-performing organization? Coming from the context of, what's the question here? We discover and remediate IT risks and vulnerabilities for high-performing companies. And I said earlier, high-performing athletes want to be working with high-performing coaches, okay? High-performing athletes don't want to be working with mediocre coaches, mediocre trainers, mediocre chefs, masseuses, etc. They want the best because they're striving to do the best. They need to have people around them that are high performers. So if we're going to be providing services, which we do, to high-performing companies, can we call ourselves a high-performing organization? So we talk about culture in the first video. Go back and watch that. That was really powerful. And we also talk about the methodology. The methodology is kind of like the subjective, non-technical soft skills, a lot about mindset. The framework, which we're going to be talking about in this video, and I'm super excited to go over these books, is the more technical, more of the hard skills. It's a little bit more objective. But I will tell you this. We are not going to be talking about revenue. We didn't talk about anything in revenue, market share, profitability, or anything about typical business success metrics, right? That if we get this right, if we get the culture, we get the methodology, and we get the framework right, and you continue to pour into that, all of the business metrics, the revenue, the market share, all that stuff will just fall into place, right? Sometimes I think we put transactions first and we put relationships second. No, you got to put relationships. You got to put your culture. You got to put this framework. You got to put this methodology first. If you don't have a framework, you don't have a methodology, I mean, what do you have? I mean, to be honest with you, how do you make decisions? And so we make decisions with intention. Go back and watch the first one. We talk about excellence. We talk about grit. We talk about effort. We talk about deep conversations, like all the stuff from methodology standpoint. But let's get into the framework because I'm excited about this. So the first section in framework, I had a hard time, as I did in the previous video, is kind of giving these a title. But the first part we're going to talk about is abundance versus scarcity. We're going to talk about goal setting, which is the newest book that I just read, which is probably why we're here doing this video. And then we're going to talk about growth mindset. I think that one of the big things for me is we need to be unapologetic about wanting what you want. I think sometimes we want things and we try to make excuses for why we don't need it, or I'm not worthy of it, right? All this other stuff. I think coming from a place of abundance and scarcity is the fact that that is a significant mind shift. You've got to get yourself out of scarcity and move it into abundancy, and that's where I sit. And the total mind shift comes from this book by Dan Sullivan called 10X is Easier Than 2X. This is, I couldn't articulate it any better. That's why Dan's writing the books and I'm not writing the books. But let me just take you through what he says right here. This is a quote from Richard Koch. And I quote, "The road to hell is paved with the pursuit of volume. Volume leads to marginal products, marginal customers, and great increased managerial complexity. Hard work leads to low returns. Insight in doing what we want leads to high returns. Strive for excellence. We talk about excellence in our methodology in Excellence Wins, right? Quoting again, strive for excellence in few things rather than good performance in many. It is not shortage of time that should worry us, but the tendency for the majority of time to be spent in low-quality ways. The 80-20 principle says that if we doubled our time on the top 20% of activities, we could work a 2-day week and achieve 60% of the return. This book, I was on a plane to Naples, Florida with Trey for a lacrosse tournament in late January of 2025. Just, 8 months ago? And I wrote down exactly what we were going to do as a company as I got back. And in February, we sat down and we identified the top 20% of our customers. And we went through this crazy exercise. And this is where we ran into high performing, because it was a constant throughout our top 20% about what they were doing as an organization. And that started our entire shift, right? Parrish sitting behind the camera. I mean, we went simplicity. We changed the everything on the website. I wrote every single word on there. All the imagery there's no stock photos, like there's all this other stuff. And we got really clear about what we do. And our clients describe us as highly available, highly reliable, and highly skilled. And that's what we are focusing on. So our entire shift over the last 8 months really is due to this entire book. Thanks, Dan. I don't mean that sarcastically, but it's really just put me in a different light. So in the book here, it's riddled with everything. I can't talk about all of it, but I just tried to pick out the main points here. Dan says in here, to separate the signal from the noise, you need to make the goal big enough to weed out most paths or strategies. There is so much noise out there in the market, chasing, shiny new things. In the world of technology and with people who like to tinker, if your organization is always, doing that, you're going to be spending a lot of money. You got to be able to separate out the noise. The great analogy that I love is there's a great movie, if you're a Kevin Costner fan, called For the Love of the Game, where he's Billy Chaplin, he's a baseball player. And there's this great scene where he's standing on the pitching mound, and I think he's at Yankee Stadium, right? And I think he's portrayed to be playing with, one of the rivals. I forget the name of the team. I can see the uniform, and he stands on the mound, and as you can imagine, New York hates this guy. And he says, quote unquote, clear the mechanism, and everything goes blurry and everything goes quiet. You as a business owner, me as a business owner, have got to be in a position where we can clear the mechanism. We've got to have clear identified goals so we know exactly where we're going and where we're leading our organization. ATG knows where it's going. Our vision statement, our mission statement, and our pillars, and what we're trying to do from a customer service standpoint. It's all been hammered out. But one of the things that he talks about on the next page is the power of goal setting. And the whole book talks about, listen, your goals are too small. You got a 2X goal versus a 5X goal, okay, or 10X goal. Dr. Bernard encourages people to make their goals so big that they believe it's impossible. Okay, stay with me here. For instance, if an entrepreneur wants to make $1 million in profits in the next 12 months, Dr. Bernard asks, do you believe that's possible? Said entrepreneur answers yes. Dr. Bernard replies back with, what about making 10 million profit in the next 12 months? Dr. Bernard suggests this. Do you believe that's possible? Entrepreneur says, I don't think so. That goal, Dr. Bernard presses, it would be impossible unless blank. What conditions need to be true for $10 million in profit in the next 12 months? Then ask yourself, how can you create these unless conditions to make it possible? Our goals have been too small. Our goals have been absolutely positively too small. And we go on to talk about, this is the next thing. With a 2x goal, right? With the too small of a goal, there are too many potential pathways / distractions to reach the desired destination. This creates paralysis by analysis. When you have a goal that actually is achievable, there is no hard path. Dan talks about you have to let go of the distractions. You've got to make a bigger goal, right? So the mind shift for us was, our goal was to do 5 million in, let's hear, what year are we in? To do 5 million by 2027, a year. We're on track to do that. Well, the problem that we have now is the fact that 5 million is not our goal. Our goal now is 50 million in 5 years. Okay? And so people look at that. That's like crazy talk. But is it? Is it really crazy talk? Let me just take in a little bit farther about what he says. 10x, right, the 50 million, requires letting go of increasing distractions. You have higher ambitions with greater and deeper scope, requiring more and better of your attention. To make something 10x better involves deep, deep work. Innovation occurs as you break everything down and put it back together in a simpler, easier, and better form. What we talked about in the previous video from our methodology standpoint, we talk about culture. We have a culture of innovation. We have a culture of empowerment, right? As a leader, importantly, your team actually relies on you enabling them to be self-managing. Your team relies on you empowering them to be self-managing so that you, as the entrepreneur and visionary, can spend most of your time in your 20% genius zones, allowing you to continually evolve and innovate. That is more about less quantity and higher quality. So when we put our goal out there for 50 million, when we sit down and we look at our operations, right, and we talk about 329, we're in the business of customer service. Technology is what we do. It's not who we are. We answer every phone call within 3 rings. We respond to every ticket in 29 minutes. You don't think that what we need to be doing as a company to maintain 329 is arduous? And it's very arduous, right? A lot of our clients, when they come in and talk about us, it will say, hey, you know what, Chris, listen, everything's fine and dandy, right? You're pretty, you got 25 people or whatever it is. You can kind of answer the phone within 3 rings and respond to 29 minutes. But what happens when you do grow to 50 million? What's it look like then? And I say, we already know what it looks like. We've already built it out. I will unequivocally tell you, we know how to scale this thing to 50 million. We already have it built. The only thing that we're lacking is clients, right? How many times do we have organizations that outgrow themselves? They have so much revenue that they can't take care of. They get the big hire, right? We're going to talk about that next from Clayton, but they can't take care of the little hires. Well, we take care of the big hire and we take care of the little hire, right? Over and over and over again. Why is that? Well, because we've made decisions based on not a 5X or 2X goal, but a 10X goal. And one of the things that our clients are like, okay, well, the smart, right, CFOs will ask us, tell me what that looks like. And I will tell you exactly what that looks like. And I'm not going to get into this, but we know. We already have it framed out. We've changed our ERP platform. We've moved to Microsoft Teams so we can, integrate our ERP platform into the right. I'm not going to go into it, but we know where that is. It was so powerful. It changed everything that we're doing from an operational standpoint. And you know what? It provides a lot of answers. It also provides a lot of answers in the fact that who are the customers that we serve? We're serving the top 20%. That's where we're at. There was this other, I thought I had it highlighted in here. Yeah, this is a great quote. You can't be great if you're content being good, right? It's scary letting go of the 80% because the 80% is in your comfort zone. So much to say about Dan and what they're doing there, but when you walk into our organization, one of the things that we do in our sales process is people get to know us. It's almost a requirement. We've got to change this actually because a lot of our customers are not in the Boise area. They're all over the United States. In fact, we just put this up on the website. I mean, we got clients in LA, Phoenix, Reno, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, Chicago, New York, Boston, right? High performing customers. Our customer base is not in Boise. We have a few customers here, don't get me wrong, but we've got to be able to build a system that can reach those other ones, and we've done that too. So it really comes down to the fact that when clients come into our office or they meet with us, when you walk in here, there is energy, right? There is powerful energy. Our team knows that we're moving, right? And it all because we had the mind shift going from 2X to 10X. So that was fantastic from Dan, Mr. Sullivan. Next one we're going to talk about is innovation. I think I also like the word progress. And this book, I read this a long time ago. My buddy John gave this to me. Competing Against Luck by Clayton Christensen was another game changer. You got to have processes. There's three things that kind of Clayton talks about in here, which is number one, the big hire, two, the little hires, and then three, a concept about is who needs to be fired. And so the thing for us is there's always the big hire. Typically work with CFOs who are looking for all the things that we provide, better IT support, outsource IT support. The other thing I'll say is a lot of people view us as a threat to internal IT teams. We're not a threat. We're just another tool, another vendor to help internal IT teams do what they're meant to be doing. I'll be honest with you, internal IT teams cannot match what we're doing from our customer service standpoint. Our 329 is unmatched. That should not intimidate them. That should, if they have the right growth mindset, that should rejuvenate them. We have several clients that have internal IT teams that we work hand in hand with, doing level 1 and level 2 type support. So, process is a competitive advantage. The process that we have for 329, I've said this before and I'll say it again.
You can go get a Dell server, 1,000 different locations. You can get a WatchGuard firewall, 1,000 different locations. You can get a Unify switch access point, NVR at UI.com direct. Okay. That's not why you're hiring us. That's not the big hire. The big hire is we are looking for high performing customer service. We understand that technology is an investment. We view it as an asset. We want to generate a return on investment against that asset. ATG can help you do that. Okay, so Clayton talks about process right here, and he says competitive advantage is built not just by understanding customers' jobs, but by creating the experiences that customers seek both in purchasing and using the product or service. Okay, so the big hire is the purchase. Okay, the little hires are how they're continuing to do the service. The big purchase is I bought a hammer. The little hires is I go out and I use a hammer every day. Okay, and then crucially, building internal processes to ensure that those experiences are reliably delivered to the customer every single time. Okay, that's our 329. That's our service level agreement. Our internal process, which our people would have to compete with us in, is not the price of a firewall, not the hourly support for cloud migration, not the price of a hard drive. It is specifically, can you guarantee that you're going to answer the phone call within 3 rings and respond to every ticket in 29 minutes? We'll go head to head with anyone that wants to do that. It's high availability, high reliability. Okay, so he also talks about, let's get in here, is who's being hired. Who's being fired. One of the things that, like I said, with internal IT teams is it's not so much that we're firing them, but we are firing them. But we're not firing them because they're not going to be working at the company. They're being fired because they're going to be transitioned into more important jobs that the company or the firm, the CFO, deems necessary. But for companies that don't have internal IT teams and they're using outsourced IT, absolutely positively has to be fired. They have to be fired, and then we have to be hired. That is hard for people. And it's probably one of the things that we spend so much time around, in the fact that when we get onboarded from a client and someone else gets fired, we used to react to the company that was being fired and create a negative energy inside our organization. We've just come to expect the fact that, listen, we understand it's going to be arduous. We have to be extraordinarily empathetic and kind to that. We are not, pounding on our chest that you're fired and we're hired and we're better than you and we're not. Listen, I don't take the fact that people are being fired lightly, right? There's a whole ripple effect to that. But it doesn't mean that we need to be rude or curse or all that stuff. We can still be kind, compassionate, right? And so we're very empathetic to that. And some of the things that we've actually ran into is the fact that we have a hard time getting documentation from the losing IT company. And Shez and Will and I and all the guys out there, I really come to the fact that I don't think it's the losing IT company actually being nefarious or being a pain in the ass or being jerks or whatever. I genuinely think that they don't have the information or the documentation platform or systems or methodology or framework that we have. And so we had to shift our expectations and just say, listen, okay, do you have it or you don't have it? And trying to come from a place of the fact that, okay, they probably don't have it. They're not trying to keep it from us, but they may not have it. So there's who's going to be fired. They need to fire, right? He just says the jobs theory, right, helps innovators identify the full picture of the progress a customer is trying to make. I think it's interesting to talk about clients hire us for them to progress. Internal IT, outsourced IT there is something prohibiting it from them. Listen, you can have the most ambitious ideas, right? And as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and IT can just stifle it, stuff it in the ground, right? And bring it to a screeching halt. We help companies who believe that they need to be having high-performing IT companies, a partner. So anyway, what customers want to hire, but what they'll need to fire to make room for the new solution. I think it's important to understand that. If you get hired, someone else is being fired. Processes are invisible from a customer standpoint. I think this is powerful too. Our clients, at the end of the day, don't care what products, what apps, what tools, what pieces of equipment we're using to deliver 329. What they see is, okay, I sent an email, I got a response in less than 29 minutes. I picked the phone, and someone actually called. And let me also make this a point. We don't use a dispatch model. People who answer the phone from our clients are first resolution technicians. They're there to fix your problem. They're not there to log your damn phone call. They're not there to take your information and put it into a queue for someone else to get there. That is not in alignment with being high performing. Okay? When you call us, you get someone on the phone from our technical solutions team, not our help desk, right? We already talked about that. We're not a help desk. We have a technical solutions team that answers the phone within 3 rings, responds to every ticket in 28 minutes. Those guys are there to help you. Now, is there an escalation path? There absolutely is an escalation path. Escalation path because maybe they don't have the permissions from a security standpoint to get to your system. Maybe they don't have the expertise. Maybe it doesn't have to do with them. Maybe it has to do with fulfillment, whatever it is. But we're not transferring phone calls to transfer phone calls because we're not taking responsibility. That's another thing. The process that we have to deliver 329 is our competitive advantage. I also thought the other quote in here, processes can't be seen on a balance sheet. It's kind of intangible. So innovation, process is a competitive advantage. Clayton's book, Competing Against Luck. There's so much good stuff in there. He's not with us anymore. He passed along. But he had a kind of a protege, Bob Moesta. And one of the things that Bob talks about is these little hires and the big hire and the little hire. And he talks about here, in fact, most think of buying and onboarding as the beginning. All right, so we always onboard a new client. But we always think of it as the end of part 1 in a journey to make progress. In ongoing use, the consumer decides if a product or service is doing the job through a series of repeated little hires each time they use the product or service. Okay, I talked about that. The big hires, the hammer. The little hires are every time they go out and use the hammer. Does the hammer meet the expertise? So when we hire or when we're hired by a client, the CEO, the CFO looks at all the deliverables. But every single time that we interact with the client, we are continuing rehiring. They are continuing to hire us. The other thing that we don't do here is we don't do contracts. Why don't we do contracts? We don't need to do contracts. If I continue to deliver on what our promise is, right, delivering 329, answering every phone call within 3 rings, responding to every ticket in 29 minutes, and we do it on every single phone call, why do I need a contract? We want the contract relationship to be in the fact that those guys continue to deliver at a high level, right? They are delivering at such a high level that we can't work without them, right? And the way that we do, if a CFO or decision maker were to see these videos, they should be in alignment with what the high-performing company is. That's why I'm shooting these videos. It's tough to put them, on a website. So the big hires, the little hires, we don't do contracts. The last little bit here is one person's, this is why we labeled 329. Because we couldn't just say we have a fast technical services team, or we have a fast. What is fast? And this is what he talks about. One person's definition of the word fast may be entirely different than another's. There is no healthy, only healthier than. There's no fast, just faster than. We labeled, right, 329 to do just that. We just didn't say we have fast and reliable IT services. Now, we do say on the website, highly available, highly reliable, but that is defined by 329, right? So Bob's book here, it really just the big hires, the little hires, demand side sales, which is fantastic. You need to read through. There's a lot of good information in that. Okay, the last thing that we want to talk about is best in class. And I got to go back to my friend Horst Schulze here in Excellence Wins, because I think he's done the best job articulating this, and I'm really excited. This is the best part of the framework, in my opinion. I got to find it, different color tab right here. So, best in class. What does that mean? We have to use the best equipment. Okay, if we're going to be high performing, let's be honest. If you have a high performance car, let's say you've got a Porsche, I don't know what it is, GT3, GTR, whatever it is, a high performance Porsche, you can't. Porsche people are not putting cheap spark plugs in that Porsche, in the motor, in the engine. You as a consumer can't put cheap gas in the gas tank. The person servicing your vehicle can't use cheap oil. Okay? Those things diminish the performance. Okay? So under that context, we use best-in-class equipment. Okay? We can't use cheap firewalls. We can't use cheap switches. We can't use cheap servers. We can't use cheap hard drives. We can't use that stuff. We have to pick best in class. And kind of like what Jack Welch said when he was at GE, right? When he would acquire a company, they need to be number one or number two in the market. And if they're not number one or number two in the market, they're going to divest. Okay? We're using best in class equipment. Okay? So that's out to our clients. But I also want to talk about the equipment that our employees use, because I think it goes to culture. Okay. If we're going to be high performing, can I have someone on our technical solutions team that's trying to deliver 329 using a cheap keyboard? Can I have them trying to achieve 329 with terrible monitors? One monitor, two monitors. If they're going to be sitting in their chair and they're going to be delivering 329, do they need just to be sitting all day? Maybe they need to be standing too. Do they need to be in a comfortable chair? Do they need to have 3 monitors? Do they need to have the best lighting? So when you come into our office, we have no overhead lights. Why don't we have any overhead lights? Because they're blue lights and they're fatiguing. They're terrible, absolutely terrible for your health, right? Parrish, you got to bleep that out. We don't do that. Absolutely, positively not. Like you want to like raise all of our blood pressure, right? And all of our levels. Go hit the switch and watch us like freak out. It is a physical response to blue light. So no blue lights, no overhead lights. Everything is done via lamps. When you walk into this environment, we're in high stress situations, right? When people call us, they're not calling us to see how they're doing. They're calling us because they got a damn problem and they need it fixed. And it's typically a stressful situation. We want our environment to be calm. The colors that we chose for the walls, the lights, right? We have a specific light. I think it's, I don't know what it is, Parrish, 2,000 or 2,500, lumens or something like that. But it's the color of the light. We have the same lamps. Our employees, after we kind of go through this fun initiation, I'll be honest, we do have a little bit of hazing here with the new guys that come on board. And we've been kind of known to give them a keyboard where the space bar doesn't work or the X doesn't work and it's corded and it's terrible. But when you come through your probationary period with us, you absolutely, positively get to pick any keyboard that you want. The tools that our guys use, our team uses, they use every day. They need the best. They get great chairs. They have stand-up desks. They got 3 monitors. They got monitor lights to keep the light low. They have whatever keyboard, whatever mouse that they want. Their space and their tools, their equipment is the best. We can't provide $329 and give them 2 shitty monitors, right? We can't give them, no offense to Microsoft and their shitty, $20 mice and keyboard package. That's not what we do. Like, if you want to go out there and see all the keyboards, it is amazing. And I will tell you, these guys will geek out on keyboards. I never knew it was a thing, right? So to be best in class, to be high performance, our equipment that we deliver to our clients, and also the equipment that our technicians and our employees use every single day, best in class. The other thing that we want to talk about is the tools and applications. Can't be a high-performing company in using shitty remote management tools. You can't be a high-performing company and use subpar desktop sharing applications. You can't be high-performing and use subpar managed antivirus or EDR or MDR or ITDR or like any of that stuff. You have to use best in class. Now, best in class comes at a price, okay? So we understand that our prices and our services are going to be more expensive. Well, why are they more expensive? Well, not because we're wanting to be more expensive. It's because our operation, because our best in class, because our high performance is more expensive. We're using the best tools. It's just not that the market says, oh, hey, listen, you should be at $200 an hour or whatever it is, or you should be at $125 a desktop. We're delivering services, high-performing services to high-performing clients because we're using high-performing products, high-performing tools, right? It's all in alignment. We're delivering $329, and this is what it costs to do. The other thing that we need to talk about, so there are 3 inputs, right? Let me just get back to what Horst said. There are 3 inputs. Good equipment, right? Now, Horst, once again, we got to find a better word here. It's great equipment. It's great materials, what we call actually tools and applications, which we talked about. And then it's great employees. Now, one of the things about employees is if we're going to be delivering $329, we are typically one technical solutions guy, person, gal, heavier than what we need to be. We have a metric that we use internally about what we're doing for growth. We, from a KPI standpoint, everyone loves fucking KPIs, key performance indicators. We have a KPI of about 20 tickets per tech. When those start to creep up to 30, then we know that, listen, we need to maintain 329. So what do? Well, we don't break 329. I'll be honest with you about that. That would be the easiest thing to do. We hire someone else. We are always looking, for people, because the first line of defense, first point of contact for us, is the technical services team. So we are always trying to stay a tech heavy. So people, it's not only people, right? One person, when we bought Integranet, this is crazy to me. When we bought Integranet a couple years ago, they would say that they had a help desk. Oh my God. Well, here's how they defined a help desk. One person with a computer and a cell phone, right? So they were using, I think, Ring Central or GoToMeeting or some shit, and you would call into the number, and then that would forward to the tech. Okay, that's not a help desk. Okay, that's definitely not a high-performing help desk. So when we talk about
help desk. We don't say help desk. We say technical services team because we're redefining what that is, right? That's very important distinction. So that is all in alignment. We have multiple people, right, on being trained in moving around organizations so we can continue to deliver 329. Okay. So those are the inputs. And then we talked about the processes, right? We talked about the processes from Bob and Clayton, right? So we have the process. You take the inputs, you take the processes, and then you deliver the great service. So we take all that. What are we delivering? We're delivering high-performing customer service. Okay? And that 329 reverberates through all of our different departments and our different divisions. Okay? So let's go back. I got a couple of notes here I skipped over. Sorry. And I think these are really important. So when it comes to good equipment, to be high performing, right? We talked about the Porsche and terrible oil, terrible gas. You can't do that. So last week, this is a real life example, right? Last part of September, Synology. Synology is who we use for our network attached storage. That's you can get that anywhere, right? But Synology put out a thing saying that there were going to be certain models moving forward that were not going to be supported by non-Synology enterprise hard drives. And so for us, we're like, okay, well, what do we got to do? We had a bunch of hard drives that we just ordered in. We returned them, and we ordered in the enterprise drives. We've been doing, I think we were doing Seagate NAS drives before. The enterprise drives from Synology were about 20% higher. Okay, but they're enterprise drives and not NAS drives. So there was a huge upheaval in the market. And I think Monday, a couple days ago, Newegg released an article and said that Synology was rolling that policy back and they were going to continue to support third-party NASs. Okay, so that's the framework. That's the context. Here's the way that Will and I, right, and the hardware team went about this, and I think this is important. I said to Will specifically, okay, are the NAS, Synology NAS drives better than the Seagate? No, sorry. Are the Synology enterprise drives better than the drives that we've been traditionally using? Is it a better product? And Will says it is. They are enterprise drives. These are NAS drives. There's a significant distinction. I said, okay, what drives do we need to be using to be best in class? Do we want to use the NAS drives or do we want to use the enterprise drives? And he says the best drives that we need to be using to provide the solution that we want to be providing is the Synology enterprise drives. End of story. Everyone else can use NAS drives, which is fine. But I simply went through the fact that, listen, we're going to be doing best in class. What is best in class, right? If we're going to be delivering this, what do we need to be doing? So that's just a little bit intake to the conversations that we have. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on this is inventory. We carry a lot of inventory. Why do we carry inventory? Well, because we have to deliver 329. People hire us to eliminate downtime, right? And we could shoot another video on this. But what does 329 actually do? 329 actually eliminates downtime for high-performing organizations. Okay? You can't afford to have your Porsche in the garage. You can't afford to have your Porsche in the pit when everyone else is racing. Okay? You can't afford to have your bookkeeper down when she needs to be cutting checks to vendors. Can't have the pay. Did I say payroll? Maybe the AP person right down when she needs to be paying vendors. The payroll computer being down when she needs to pay employees. You can't have that. You can't have your CEO stuck in Heathrow Airport, right, with conditional access set up so he can't get important emails. Okay, those are real live examples, by the way. That's what we do. We eliminate downtime. 329 eliminates downtime, directly correlated. Well, what else is downtime? Okay, there are other great firewalls out there. We use WatchGuard. Meraki's a great firewall. Obviously, Juniper, Palo Alto, Cisco. We don't do any Cisco because we're not certified. But there are some terrible ones out there. We like WatchGuard. We carry a lot of WatchGuard in inventory. Why do we carry WatchGuard in inventory? We carry WatchGuard in inventory just like the pit crew carries and has extra tires when the race car comes into pit. Does that make sense? If the firewall goes down for one of our clients, let's say they're out of the Boise area, we have the config, right? We can pull the config, pull the replicated WatchGuard, put the config in it, put it in a FedEx box, and have it there next day. Who's doing that? You tell me how fast. If we didn't have inventory, could we do that? No, that's what our clients pay us for. It's the same thing with hard drives. It's the same thing with monitors and keyboards and all this other stuff. People look at it like, why are we carrying inventory? We're carrying inventory because we're delivering a high-performing service. People pay us to have that stuff on stock. I don't know what the number is, but I think it was at least 3 times. We did not succumb to the excuse during COVID with our clients, the fact that we didn't have product. We bought a lot of product above market price, or whatever you say. And Will would always come to me. He said, "Chris, it's 10% above what MSRP is." I said, "Will, it doesn't matter. Either we got it or we don't got it, right? It isn't that we're trying to screw our clients and mark it up." And I have no problem divulging margin, right? A lot of people are like, "Oh, people don't know what our costs are." Bullshit, right? The cost is the cost. Okay, we have a 30% markup. That is more than fair. There's holding costs, there's handling costs, there's like all this other stuff. That is fair. It's not gouging. We disclose that. Full transparency. But we tripled our inventory with switches, firewalls, and whatever. We were not going to give our clients the verbiage and saying, "Listen, we can't get it because of supply chain." They don't hire us for that. No, they hire us to hold the inventory, and we were happy to do it. So inventory, Synology's best-in-class processes deliver a high-performing service, and that's what we do. So that's kind of the last part of the framework. So you have your inputs, you apply your process, and you get a great service, 329. So is 329 or is ATG a high-performing organization? All right, let me leave you with the last thing. Parrish, how are we doing on time? Pretty good? Okay. These are some KPIs, right? We don't run our business based on KPIs, but I can't say that we don't look at numbers. I mean, we look at P&Ls. We look at cash flow. We look at all of the business metrics. But those are the what do I want to say? Those are the benefits of having a great culture, a great framework, and a great methodology. That's where my mindset is. So let's look at these. Okay, so in Q1, we averaged about 2,000 tickets a month. Okay, that is 95.55 tickets a day under 329. Okay? Fact, right here, black and white, fact. Okay? In Q2, that's July, August, and September, we did average 1,902 tickets a month. Okay? Our average was down a little bit. We did 95 tickets a day, under 329. Using our culture, our methodology, and our framework, right? Is this high performance? Does that constitute high performance? Can we call ourselves a high performance organization when we continue to deliver 329 at a high volume? I say yes. Parrish, the answer is Adams Technology Group is a high performing organization. We are looking for, and this is on the website, we are looking for high performing clients. We know that they're out there. What we're trying to do is find them. And I believe that when you put this kind of content and you talk about this stuff and you put it out on YouTube, and we'll do some shorts and we'll do all the other stuff that Parrish does all his magic, it will find the right people. we are, right, built to be a $50 million organization. Dan provided the wow factor for me on that. We had already talked about and had been implementing this stuff from Clayton and from Bob. From a methodology standpoint, Mr. Scholes was fantastic. Oh, him a big thank you to all these people who have really shaped my life. But I don't continuously read. I just go back to these things and I look at them as points of reference. Now, I'm not saying that people don't make a recommendation for a book, but I'm pretty good at kind of skimming through it and, is this already been taught, before? So that's what I have for us. Adams Technology Group is a high-performing company. We continue to deliver 329. I would encourage other IT companies out there to make the industry better, and I challenge you to deliver 329. Figure out what it's going to take for you to deliver great customer service. And here's why I'll say that. I shit you not. We have a ticket. We have a client in downtown Boise, and we're making there are some ISP changes going on that we're help facilitating. And we reached out to a client and said, hey, listen, who's managing your IT? We've got an IP change that we need to be making on your firewall. I kid you not. I sent the email on Friday. Okay. That's today is Thursday. If I was a betting man or you were a betting person, what do you think the chances are that I have heard back from them on what we need to be doing? 0. So I sent a note to the administrative assistant and said, hey, listen, I still haven't heard back from, said IT company, and I'm doing everything I can not to rat them out. But she said, well, you probably should put in a phone call. I said, okay, I get it. Right. The thing for me is the fact that that's the bullshit that is dragging our industry down. It's a lack of professionalism. It's a lack of processes. It's a lack of framework. It's a lack of methodology. Those are the things that we talk about and we compete with every day, because we'll get into high level meetings and people will say, well, I've heard all that bullshit before. And I say, I know. That's why I shoot this video, because and we'll sit it out somewhere. Parrish will figure out where to put it, and we'll splice it up so it's not quite so long. Whatever we need to do, but this is top down. I'm the president of the company. This is what I do. I create the culture. I build the framework. I build the methodology. I do everything I can to get the right people on the bus. I move the people that aren't fit off the bus, and I get the right people in the right seats. That's where it starts. I continue to invest in the culture, right, over and over and over again, so these guys can be empowered to do what they want to do. We continue to sharpen, right, iron sharpen iron. We continue to push them to be better outside their limits, because as we get better, our clients can be better, right? It's so big, and so that's kind of our sweet sauce. You can go back and look at the previous video where we talk about culture and we talk about the methodology, and then you can kind of take this stuff with framework. Here's the deal. This is what's working for me. I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but I do think that there are clients out there that IT is evidently increasingly complicated. Everything is interconnected. And as everything gets interconnected, people can't afford to be down. They need to find us so we can help them, right, continue to be high performing, so they can continue to deliver to their clients, to their shareholders, to their stakeholders, and do the things that they need to be doing. So ATG is a high performing company looking for high performing clients. Listen, you always feel to reach out to me if you've got any questions. You can hit me. Parrish will put the email out there and whatnot. But I appreciate your time. Let me know how I can help, and we'll talk to you on the next video. Thanks.